With the finale of Dutton Ranch recently being released and it concluding in a way that opened up the show to be developed and continue on in a completely different way when it returns for season 2, I think it proved that it has the potential to be as strong as Yellowstone in the long run. With Carter being taken by Mariano, Beth and Rip needing to go on the offensive, and Rob Will being killed by his brother, the next season might just bring about that crossover that we were all anticipating that could be with Beth's brother Casey. So with that, I wanted to share my theories and predictions on what I think could happen and also look at everything that's out there on the new season. So let's get into it. Here is Dutton Ranch Season 2 Theories Explained and everything we know. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Casey Dutton could join the fight. With Carter being taken by Mariano and being used as leverage to get the Duttons out of the picture, Beth and Rip won't have any clue whatsoever where he is and how to even reach out to him. This will most likely mean that they're gonna need some outside help to find him, with the sheriff being somebody that can't really be trusted because of his connection to the Jacksons and the fact that he's inside of Beulah's pockets. They're gonna have to look elsewhere. We know for a fact that Beth and Rip will be going on the offensive, as we heard Beth say that they're gonna effing get them when Rip said how they didn't want Carter but they instead wanted them. If they're gonna look to take the fight to Mariano and his crew, then I think they'll look to utilize Beth's brother Casey, who we know is a former Navy SEAL and he could utilize his specialized skills in order to find them. With the show that was released earlier on in the year focused on the Marshals of Montana not actually being that well received by the fans, by having Casey join this show it would allow his Yellowstone journey to be able to continue and the legacy of the original show would continue as well. Carter is a character that was essentially acting like a spoiled brat the entire season because he didn't want anything to do with Beth and Rip and didn't want to be seen as being anybody's, and that's ultimately what landed him in this position by just running away. Personally, I don't think Carter will be killed, but instead, I think this could end up being the making of him and he'll emerge out the other side as the man that he needs to be. I think this will make him end up with the toughness of Rip, and with Rip and Beth and potentially Casey being the people that will end up saving him. That might actually be the thing that makes him change his mind on the way that he treats them. He might see the value of family and the importance of staying together, because if he was on his own, then he'd have nobody to save him. Wes's death will be investigated. One part of the story in the first season that didn't really get looked into that much was the death of Wes. It occurred during the first episode of the show and we saw Wes's wife Whitney being warned off and scared out of her home by the Jacksons. With Joaquin going to Sheriff Wade with the hopes of pinning the death on Rob Will, with Rob Will now being dead, it obviously won't be pinned on him, so it now has the potential to be pinned on somebody else. The weapon was left with Sheriff Wade during the penultimate episode, and it seems like that was done because it's going to play an important role later on down the line. With Rip actually holding the weapon in the first episode of the season after disarming Rob Will, it seems like his prints could still be on the weapon. With Sheriff Wade holding onto it, he might begin to investigate the disappearance more and maybe begin to follow Rip. If Wade is on the side of the Jacksons and is as crooked as it seems like he is, I wonder if Beulah might end up persuading Sheriff Wade to pin the crime on Rip, especially seeing as though the prints are there. She knows that the body was buried on his property as he admitted that to her in the season finale. Beulah is most likely going to blame Beth and Rip for Rob Will's death because they decided to intervene and disrupt the transporting of narcotics being operated, which led to Mariano being frustrated, so she might look to make them pay. Even though the case could be closed with Rob Will now being dead, I don't think the weapon would have been left with Wade if they didn't plan on touching back on that story again in the future. Oriana's pregnancy. Another major part of the story that will be developed in the next season of the show is the pregnancy of Oriana and the fact that she's carrying Carter's baby. Even though she was planning on running away with Carter during the finale, following her father's death, I think we could almost see a slightly different side to her now. She's going to be plunged into a dark place, and I think it might actually bring her closer to her grandmother, somebody that she hasn't really been close with at all. What Oriana carrying Carter's baby will do will put her in the middle of both her own family and Beth and Rip, as Beulah might well not want anything to do with them due to the death of Rob Will. So it's going to be an interesting time and place to see Oriana navigating. Joaquin will be found out. When Oriana was screaming after finding her father's body downstairs by the door, there was a moment where it looked like she caught a glimpse of the car as it was driving off. This makes me think that she knows that it was Joaquin that did it, and maybe she'll end up going down the pathway for revenge. We've seen Beulah not wanting Oriana to basically become her, but with her knowing that it was her uncle that killed her father, she might actually take matters into her own hands, just like Beulah did all of those years ago. Alternatively, she could end up telling Beulah, and that's then where the two different sides of the family will be cemented even more. We know that Mariano wants Joaquin to take over the ranch because he wants to ensure the transportation operation goes back to running efficiently. So I think we'll see him heading up the 10-petal ranch and sitting in his mother's chair whilst they know that he was responsible for the killing of Rob Will. It's definitely a dynamic that I'm interested to see. Other potential moments. I still think we're gonna see Azul potentially meeting his end. There's been too much of a setup for his death with the happiness that it seems like he's on the cusp of getting in life. He's getting the son that he's always wanted, and he's happy with his wife. For me, it's just the fact that he was preemptively building the crib, something that seemed to be unlucky, so I'm almost just waiting for it to come crumbling down. The release date. Now, the first thing we need to look at is if there's even going to be a season 2 of the show. Well, thankfully, back during June, it was announced that Dutton Ranch would be getting a second installment, which I, along with many others, were extremely pleased about. The first episode of the show had the highest viewing figures ever for a premiere on Paramount Plus, so it was kind of a no-brainer that we would be getting more of the show. The next step is to then look at when it could potentially be released. Well, nowadays, most shows tend to operate on about an 18-month timeline between seasons. So this would mean that we could expect to see the show at around the end of 2027, which does feel quite far away. I have found Taylor Sheridan's shows to have quite quick turnaround, so I wouldn't actually be that surprised if we ended up seeing it in around a year's time. I hope we do. Unlike this season, instead of just having 9 episodes, I hope the next season has 10. With the story being far larger in scale compared to this season, us potentially seeing the operation in Mexico and also hopefully having Casey arriving, we're definitely going to need more episodes within it. The cast. When it comes to the cast in the next season, I think we could definitely expect to see some new faces appearing in the show. In terms of returning characters though, I think it's clear to see that we'll see Rip, Beth, Carter, Everett, Beulah, Oriana, Joaquin, Mariano, Azul, Zachariah, Austin, Miguel, and Sheriff Wade all returning. When it comes to new characters, I'd love to see Casey appearing. I feel like there's definitely a place for him in this show and he'd fit into the story really well. I also think we'll see more key players from the operation in Mexico getting more of a larger involvement too. In terms of characters that won't be returning, we're definitely not going to be seeing Dwight as he's long dead now, and we most likely won't see Rob Will either. The only way I could see Rob Will appearing is if it was in the form of some kind of flashback where we got to see the altercation between the two brothers before he was killed. That's something that I would be interested in seeing. For now, these are the main theories that I have for the next season of the show, and also the information that's currently out there about the release date, the returning cast, and the potential new cast members. Dutton Ranch has been a great continuation of the Yellowstone world, and I'm so glad that we're going to be getting more of it. Here's to Season 2. So, there you have it. Dutton Ranch Season 2, theories explained, and everything we know.